You know, guys, the funny thing about freedom of speech is that we all try to act like this is something that is exclusively afforded to us through the Constitution or your government, wherever you are. But the fact of the matter is that freedom of speech is kind of like the freedom to breathe. It's something that we're actually born with. It's like freedom to think. You know what I mean? It's just something that each of us has the ability to do. If we have the ability to actually speak, then we have the freedom to say whatever it is that pops into our mind. Now, what we choose to say, that's what says a lot about our character. Whether we choose to say things deliberately that we know are offensive to other people, or we choose to say things that are uplifting to other people, or we just choose to have a conversation. This is all part of your natural gift of speech and your freedom to express yourself. But like I said before, this is the responsibility that we have as human beings to one another. Even, it's no different than, I don't know, signaling before you change lanes. You can choose to do it or you can choose not to do it. If you choose not to do it and you cut somebody off, well, there could be some repercussions to that, and they have the freedom of speech to say what they think of you for cutting them off. You see what I'm getting at? This is part of our responsibility to one another in this thing called life as human beings. Okay, so I find it quite interesting when you have a story like this involving one Mr. Samuel Jackson, Nick Fury, and Jules from Pulp Fiction, and a host of other movies. Sam Jackson is probably one of the most successful actors of all time in Hollywood. Okay? I need not bring up his race because it's really not important. Well, maybe in the context of this, it actually is, because Samuel Jackson has got some points to make regarding Hollywood and regarding who can and who cannot say the so-called N-word within the entertainment industry. So, I find this very interesting. And of course, that's his freedom also. That's his freedom of speech. That's his freedom of thought to give his opinion. Okay, now I'm going to give mine. This is the gospel according to Mark with a C. He is I and I am he. Just taking some time to tell you exactly what's on my mind. Thank you for joining me once again, my friends. And yes, you've seen the thumbnail, so you know what this is about, okay? Samuel Jackson is sounding off against Joe Rogan. Yes, that's original. You don't see too many people doing that these days. Let's dogpile on Joe Rogan. So here's Samuel Jackson taking offense to Joe Rogan's usage of the so-called N-word. Now, ordinarily, I would just say the word because, once again, I do believe in freedom of speech, and also I believe in intention of speech and intention of actions too. I know for a fact that if I'm going to use a slur, and let's not get it twisted, it's not a term of endearment, it is a slur. I don't care who uses it, okay? But if I'm going to use it, usually it's because I'm making a greater point. And I dare say that I believe that's what Joe Rogan was doing as well, okay? But I'm not going to defend Joe Rogan's usage of that particular slur because, once again, it was his choice to use it. And once you use a slur, then you must, especially if you're in a public forum, then you must know that people are going to have some type of issue with it. People are going to voice their opinions on you using it. All right, I'm just the one who says nobody should be using it. Okay, but since I see a multi-billion-dollar hip-hop industry that sells to all types of people, no matter who you are, all around the world, no matter what your race, and I see people, record companies getting filthy fucking rich off that, and the artists, doing pretty good, usually getting gypped and swindled, but, they're doing it too. They want to be in videos, throwing up their jewels and all that stuff. Well, if that's how you're making your money, by selling this image and generously throwing this racial slur out there, regardless to who is listening to it, then you must know after a while you become an influencer. You're influencing people to actually partake in the lifestyle that you're throwing out there for entertainment and for profit. Okay, so that's what we have going on. And since we've had that going on now for at least the last 50 years or so, where people are generously using that particular slur, the N-word, well, is it really realistic to expect that people of different persuasions won't actually reflect this particular, part of pop culture that you have contributed to? So what am I talking about? Now, Sam Jackson has a problem with Joe Rogan using it, and let's find out why he's got that problem. Let's look into this, and then I'm going to give you a few more of my illustrious opinions on this. In this particular article here, this is the NewYorkPost.com, and it says, Samuel L. Jackson slams Joe Rogan's N-word use and defends Quentin Tarantino. Well, what's Quentin Tarantino got to do with all of this? I love Quentin Tarantino's movies. I always have. You might say I'm a fan. Let's go on. Samuel L. Jackson had a few choice words except one for disgraced podcaster Joe Rogan. Disgraced podcaster? Was he really disgraced? I don't know, but this is what happens when you apologize to SJWs. They're allowed to write up the narrative however they want. Okay, so now he's disgraced because he tried to give a alternate voice to the narrative that was out there regarding the COVID pandemic. And a lot of the things that those doctors were saying that he showcased have actually come to pass if you've been paying attention, okay? So anyway, in a recent interview, the actor shared his thoughts on who can and cannot use the N-word because, of course, if you want an authority on that, you're going to go to Samuel L. Jackson, who probably built the majority of his career slinging around cuss words. Going on. The comments came while Jackson was on the subject of one of Rogan's latest controversies, this time his use of racial slurs on his Joe Rogan Experience podcast. Say you're sorry because you want to keep your money, but you were having fun, and you say you did it because it was entertaining, Jackson told the Times in London. Rogan's prolific use of the N-word was called out by last month by singer India Arie, who shared a montage of more than a dozen times that the host had used the epithet on his podcast over the past 12 years. India Arie, I've said it many times, if she's so pro-black and proud to be black, why is her name India Arie and not Africa Arie? But I digress. Rogan, 54, apologized as the offenses came to light, though he said the clips were taken out of context by Arie. He added that the admission was the most regretful and shameful thing I've had to talk about publicly. But Jackson isn't buying the apology. He's saying nobody understood the context when he said it, but he shouldn't have said it. It's not the context, dude. It's that he was comfortable doing it. So it's just the mere fact that he said it. And it doesn't matter what the context is. Context does not matter, Samuel Jackson said. Put that up here and remember that, won't you? There are moments when the word is appropriate, the Pulp Fiction actor continued. Like when it's an element of what the story is about. A story is context, but just to elicit a laugh, that's wrong, the 73-year-old actor said. Jackson then cited director pal Quentin Tarantino to make his point. Now, Tarantino, too, has been called out for using the so-called N-word in the past, but it's different for him, according to Jackson. Of course it's different for him. He's the one who signs your check. Isn't that true, buddy? Of course it is. Get all up in that ass, Samuel Jackson. Kiss it. Mwah, mwah, mwah. While we were rehearsing Django Unchained, or wait, Django, the D is silent, Leo DiCaprio said, I don't know if I can say the N-word this many times. Jackson said, me and Quentin Tarantino said, you have to. And then, what's his name? DiCaprio said what? And he said, say what again? I'm sorry, I know, I had to, it's corny. Every time someone wants an example of overuse of the N-word, they go to Quentin. It's unfair, he added. He's just telling the story, and the characters do talk like that. When Steve McQueen does it, it's art. He's an artiste. Quentin's just a popcorn filmmaker. Jackson has defended Tarantino in the past. In the 2018 documentary about the director's first 8 feature films called Q28, the first 8, Jackson said there's no dishonesty in anything that Quentin writes or how people talk, feel, or speak in his movies. Now, Samuel Jackson, you do realize that Quentin Tarantino's movies are largely fiction. Okay, so if you can accept that people talk that way in a fictionalized world, then what type of detached reality are you living in where you can't understand how people just might talk that way in real life, Samuel Jackson? Why is there context in fiction but not in real life? I'm having a hard time understanding this. Help me to understand it, Samuel Jackson. Now, keep in mind, I am not somebody who is going to be defending the use of the so-called N-word. This is something that I particularly took out of my vocabulary at a very, very, very young age. I remember threatening to whoop this man's ass who kept calling me that. Happened to be a black man. And he was very surprised about that. Oh, you's a big, I bet you be knocking people out. You's a big. I said, yeah, I don't usually knock people out, but I'm about to if you keep calling me a you know? I said that. My mom was there and everything. She saw the whole thing. I must have been something like maybe 17, 18 years old when that happened. All right, but I don't condone it. All right, but like I said before, when you have a $1 billion hip hop industry that has put this into at least the last 2 generations where you hear it, and this goes back to NWA. Now, y'all remember what N stands for in NWA, right? Okay, it doesn't stand for nincompoops, but that's what it is. Okay, so you have to be realistic about this. Remember, I'm all about cleaning up where you live before you go someplace else. And if we can't clean up that particular word out of our vocabulary, then it is absolutely hypocritical to think that this word is not just going to come up every now and then. You can't be clutching your pearls every time you hear somebody use it, especially regardless of context. But that's what we've got going on here. And of course, Samuel Jackson, he's also popping off. What has he got, like a new movie or something? Usually when you hear people running their mouth like this, it's because they're trying to promote something else. But he's also talking about the Oscars and how it only seems like black people get Oscars when they're playing a grimy role. Well, listen, we've always known that Hollywood does have a problem with the black image. I'm not going to sit here and act like that's not true, okay? But the fact of the matter is that it is acting, okay? So if I'm a fine, upstanding individual, then why would I think that it's a stretch for me to go and act as a fine, upstanding individual, okay? It might actually stretch my acting chops to act like an asshole, okay? And in the process of acting like an asshole, if somebody says, hey, well, he really plays a convincing asshole, let's give him an award for that. I'll be like, give me my Oscar. You love me. You really, really love me. Or is it like me? I don't know. Love is a strong word, but then so is hate. All right, and it's too strong to be putting on people where you're going to try to act like somebody is just racist or they're hateful. Quentin Tarantino made a movie called The Hateful Eight, Samuel Jackson, and you were in it, okay? So you were nominated for an Oscar for playing a crackhead, okay? Which, of course, I guess wasn't really a stretch because I think back in the day, Samuel Jackson actually was a crackhead. You know, and this is no disrespect because I love Samuel Jackson, you know, Mace Windu, you know what I mean? But when you start popping off this way, I just challenge you to think about what you're saying, okay? This is not a defense of Joe Rogan as much as it is just an acceptance of the fact that until people take responsibility for the energy that they put out there, then you can't be surprised by the energy that comes back to you, okay? So it starts at home. That's where it starts first. This is something that we have to clean up for ourselves before we can hold anybody else to any type of standard. You know, that's how I feel. Once again, it starts with you. Samuel Jackson, one of the highest paid actors in Hollywood, with all of the money that you made playing grimy roles, slinging around cuss words and all that stuff, I think maybe you better sit down, my friend. You know, it's a good point, but maybe you're not the one to be making it. You know, that's just my opinion. Of course, guys, you can get in the comment section and let me know how you feel. Once again, okay, most people don't make it to the end of my videos, so you won't hear me say that I'm not defending anything, all right? I'm not defending anyone. This is in the interest of conversation. How do you feel about Samuel Jackson and what he's saying? Do you feel that it's okay in certain contexts to use the word? All right, especially if you're not black. And the weird thing about that is there has to be a fundamental acceptance that you are the N-word if you get a pass to use the N-word. Personally, I do not relate. All right, I don't identify as the N-word. So I'm not taking that particular privilege. I'm not taking that offense. I'm just saying what I'm doing in my life. And I feel that's all you can really do. But guys, get in the comment section. Like I said, tell me how you feel about this. As always, you can like, you can share, you can subscribe. Catch me on Twitter, Odyssey, Rumble. I'm out there. Thank you for listening, guys. I'll catch you on the next one. This is The Gospel According to Mark with a C. Rock on.